Hi, and welcome to Run Tall with Tim. I'm Tim. Today's video, I'm going to summarize all of the different workouts that were completed for week 5 of our 15-week half marathon training program using Garmin Coach. Now, this is really an executive summary of all those different workouts, so I'm going to keep it pretty short and sweet. But if you want more details, or if you want to see some run footage or the shoes that I might have been wearing to complete the different workouts, you can click on a more expanded version because I post each of those as I complete them throughout the week, and I'll put a card above so you can just click on that and it'll take you right there. Also, if you're new to the channel, I post running shoe reviews and comparisons on both Wednesday and Saturday mornings, and that's at 5 a.m. Standard Eastern Time here in the US. But I also like to post other videos like this one, but I'm not always sure what day of the week that's going to be or even what time of day. So if you enjoy running shoe reviews and other videos related to running, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time that I upload new content. Having said that, let's get right into the workouts for week number 5. So week 5 started on Sunday. It was an easy run. I started with a 5-minute jog to warm up, and then I ran for 40 minutes. Now I was trying to stay at an easy pace between a 9:14 and a 10:14 minute mile, and then I completed that workout with a 5-minute jog to cool down. Now to complete the workout, I stayed close to home. I just ran around my town, which meant that I was running on pavement as well as some concrete sidewalks, and I was wearing the New Balance 1080 V11s. So let's take a look at my results, and you can see from this workout that I went a total of an hour, which is 10 minutes longer than what they were calling for, but that's only because I was still about 10 minutes away from home when my workout was completed, so I just unpaused it and finished my trip home with pretty much just an extended cool down phase. In total, I went 6.33 miles, and then as we scroll over, we can see that my average pace was a 9:34 minute mile, with my best pace being a 7:49 minute mile, which meant that my average speed was 6.3 miles per hour with a max speed of 7.7 miles an hour. And then we're going to scroll over once again. And here we can see that my heart rate was 154 beats per minute with a max of 185 beats per minute. My run cadence, not too terribly bad. It was 187 steps per minute with a max cadence of 210 steps per minute. Now, anytime you see spikes, for example, either in my speed or my pace or my heart rate or my cadence, that typically means I'm going downhill somewhere. And then, as we can see with the elevation gain and loss, I had 72 feet of elevation gain and 79 feet of elevation loss. And then we'll scroll over here and we'll take a look at the individual lap times. And lap 1 is my warm-up. Now, I was warming up at a pretty slow pace. My ankle's still pretty tender, so it takes me a while to get warmed up. But I started out at a 10:22 minute mile. And then I kind of settled in with an average pace of a 9:27. And then lap 3 was 9:36. And then 9:29. And then I got a 10:33 in there. Now that was for a very short period of distance, and because I was running around town, I recall, I had to kind of stop at some of the intersections or slow up just because of traffic. Lap 6 was a 9:28, lap 7 was a 9:30, lap 8 was a 9:21, and then lap 9 was a 9:23, and lap 10 was a 9:48. To complete the laps. And then as we scroll over again, we can see visually, a representation of my pace rate. And you can see there are a few spikes there. There are a few hills around town, and so that represents some of them. Other ones could be, if I'm turning on the GoPro, sometimes I pick up the pace whether I want to or not. Just kind of an unnatural or instinct to do that. And then my heart rate, you can see that, it was up pretty good just to start, but then I settled in once I got going, and there were a couple of spikes there, and judging from where those spikes are in relation to my workout, I can tell you that those are about where hills would be, so it's no surprise there that my heart rate would spike in those areas. And then as we scroll over again, we can see my cadence was pretty steady, on average 187 steps per minute again. And then there in the green, you can see the representation of the elevation gain and loss. So you can tell visually that, there were a few hills that I had to attend to. And then finally, we'll scroll over one more time, and we can see that for the most part, my heart rate zone was zone 4. So that's not too terribly bad for an easy run. So I got to hand it to all of you who train by heart rate, because it's a lot easier said than done. I don't have the knack of it yet. I might in the future have to do some training specifically using a heart rate method. Hey, that's the breakdown for the easy run for Sunday's workout. So let's take a look at Tuesday's progression run and see exactly how I did do. Now for Tuesday's progression run, here's the breakdown. It starts with a 5-minute jog to warm up. And then it's a 20-minute run at our easy pace, which ranges between a 9:14 and 10:14 minute mile. And then we go an additional 10 minutes at a pace of a 7:14 to a 7:34 minute mile. And then we end the workout with a 5-minute jog to cool down. So let's see how I did and see if I could stay within those pace ranges. So let's start and we'll just take a look at the overall workout itself. In here you can see I went for a total of 40 minutes. And I went 4.69 miles, and then we're going to scroll over and we can see that my average pace was an 8:34 minute mile. My best pace was a 5:49, and that was basically I was going downhill. My average speed was 7 miles an hour with a max speed of 10.3 miles an hour. Again, I was going downhill. There was quite a few hills. I was out at my local state park to do this workout. And let's see now for my heart rate, 161 beats per minute on average with a max of 182 beats per minute. I recall I did think that it was going to be much higher than that for my max heart rate just because it was pretty difficult going up and down some of those hills. My average run cadence was 191 steps per minute with a max of 210. And here we have my elevation gain and loss with an elevation gain of 79 feet and elevation loss of 75 feet. We'll scroll over again, and here we can see that during that 5-minute jog to warm up, I was going at a pretty slow pace, 11:27 minute mile, and that's okay. And then I settled in. I was running an 8:42 minute mile, and then 8:56, and then a 9:31 minute mile. Now, typically, right before I start any kind of speed work, my pace does tend to slow down, and it certainly did here, and you can see that with lap 4. Lap 5 was the first part of the progression, and I was running a 6:59 minute mile. Now, when I started that progression piece of it, I was going uphill when that kicked in, so I wasn't exactly sure how fast I needed to go in order to maintain that, try to stay within that 7:14 minute mile pace range. And then lap 6 was a 7:22 minute mile. And then lap 7 was the 5-minute jog to cool down at an 8:42 minute pace. And then lap 8 wasn't hardly a lap at all. It was just a few seconds remaining before I got back to my vehicle. And that was a 7:23 minute mile pace. Then we scroll over again and we can see this visually in my pace. And it shows very clearly where I entered into the progression run piece of it, because you can see that the graph is well above that line there in the blue. And then the same holds true for my heart rate. You can see where my heart rate had kicked up a notch when I entered into the progression run, as it should. With my cadence, it stayed pretty steady right up until I got into the progression run piece of it, and then it went up a notch, but it stayed pretty steady, during that progression, and then came down again once I got into the cool down phase. And then interesting at the bottom, you can see the elevation gain and loss represented in a graph, so you can tell that there were quite a few hills that I was working out at the state park. And then finally, we can scroll over again and we'll see visually that my heart rate for the most part stayed within zone 5, but it spent a fair amount of time in zone 4. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the workout. So now let's take a second and we'll break down and take a look and see how the speed repeats turned out on Wednesday. So in order to do the speed repeats, I went back out to my state park and tried to find that trail less traveled, if you were, so that I didn't have to worry about traffic or pedestrians when I'm trying to run fast. So let's break it down and see what it entails. And here I start with a 15-minute jog to warm up, and then I run for a minute at a 7:04 to 7:24 minute mile pace, and then I have a minute to recover. I repeat that sequence 6 different times. And then I move right into the second half of the speed repeats. Here I'm running for 30 seconds at a 6:04 to 6:24 minute mile with 1 minute jog to recover, and I repeat that process 6 different times as well. And then I end the workout with a 15-minute jog to cool down. So let's check it out and see how I did. So in total, I ran for 51 minutes. I went 5.96 miles. So let's scroll over and we can see that I ended up with an average pace of an 8:34 minute mile with a best pace of 5:41. My average speed was 7 miles an hour with a max speed of 10.6 miles an hour. And as we scroll over again, we can see that my heart rate, the average was 164 beats per minute with a max of 186. My run cadence was 194 steps per minute with a max run cadence of 228 steps per minute, and I'm proud of that. I like to have quick feet. And then we can see that my elevation gain was 69 feet. My elevation loss was 72 feet. For the most part, it was pretty flat. I ran around one side of the lake basically to get to a couple of parking lots that were put together in order to do the speed repeats. And then we'll scroll over again and we can see there with lap 1 and 2 were my warm-ups, and I warmed up at an 8:31 and 8:49 minute mile pace. And then I went right into the speed repeats, and I was running at a 6:46 minute mile. And then lap 5 was a 6-minute mile pace. Lap 7 was a 6:48 minute mile pace. And then lap 9 was a 7:44. Lap 11 was 7:02. Lap 13 was a 7-minute mile. And then we switched gears a little bit, and we go right into the 30-second speed repeats where I needed to pick up the pace. And here you can see I was running at a 6:13 minute mile pace, and that's lap 15. And then lap 17 was a 6:57. Lap 19 was a 6:14, and then a 6:24, and then 6:12, 6:33. And then we went into the cool down phase where I finished out the 15-minute jog with a 9:06, 9:25, and an 8:26 minute mile pace. We'll scroll over again. We'll take a look visually, and this is kind of a fun one to look at because you can see all of the different speed repeats that were performed, all of those spikes in that blue graph. And the same holds true with my heart rate. You can see it was pretty steady and pretty decent, and you can see all of those different spikes in my heart rate when I entered into the speed repeats, and that's a good thing. I'm trying to build up my VO2 max. And the only way I can do that is for my body to call for more oxygen than it's already getting. So this is where the speed repeats help me to run faster in the future. And then we can see in my cadence, where I picked up the pace running those speed repeats. And then there you can see the elevation gain and loss. Again, that wasn't much there. What was there was just on the trip over and the trip back to get to those parking lots. And then finally, I'll scroll over one more time and we can see that the majority of this workout was in zone 5 for my heart rate. And I'm perfectly fine with that when I'm running speed repeats. So that's the breakdown for Wednesday's speed repeats. So let's take a look and see how I did on Friday's long, easy run. Hey everybody, it is Friday. It's a long, easy run scheduled for today. So I'm going to start with a 5-minute jog to warm up. And then I'm going to run for an hour and 35 minutes at our easy run pace, which ranges between a 9:14 and a 10:14 minute mile. I'm probably going to try to split the difference and maybe go like a 9:45, something like that. And then I'm going to end the workout with a 5-minute jog to cool down. It's cold today. I'm back out at my local state park and it's windy, which is why I'm recording in the vehicle, just because that wind noise gets pretty distracting. And I'm trying to improve the quality of the videos for you guys as much as possible. And also I'm going to be running in the Hoka Arahi 5s today. So they're a mild stability shoe, and I'm hoping that might help with my ankle a little bit. Because I did tweak them, did tweak my right ankle pretty badly actually from Wednesday's speed repeats, and I didn't recover as much as I had hoped from my day off yesterday. So we'll see how it goes. That's kind of one of those game day decisions to make. You got to listen to your body. So we'll see how today goes, and then I'll have to make a decision on Sunday what I plan to do, whether I want to take an extra day off to try to give it more time to heal, so I'm good to go on Tuesday or not. But we'll see when the time comes. So let's check it out and see how I did. In total, I ran for an hour and 46 minutes. I went a distance of just a little over 11 miles. And I'm going to scroll over and we can see that my average pace was a 9:38 minute mile. Now that's not terrible. You might recall that I had said I was going to try to kind of split the difference and keep it around a 9:45 minute mile, so I'm happy with the 9:38. My best pace was a 7:49 minute mile. I'm sure that's because I was going downhill at some point. There were a lot of hills on this run. My average speed was 6.2 miles an hour with a max speed of 7.7 miles an hour. And I'm going to scroll over again. And we can see that my average heart rate was 159 beats per minute with a max of 187 beats per minute. My average run cadence was 186 steps per minute with a max of 207. Now I had 138 feet of elevation gain and 121 feet of elevation loss. So let's scroll over again and we can take a look at the different laps. Now I'm not going to go through all of these. It was a long, easy run. But I did, I just want to point out that I did start my warm up by running at a much slower pace. I was running a 10:21 minute mile. And then you can see I settled in to right around that 9:38 minute mile that it ended up to be for pretty much the entire rest of the run. So I was pretty happy with that. With the exception, and I'm going to scroll over again here, we can see lap 12. Now, when I first posted the workout, the individual workout yesterday, I mentioned the 10:31 minute mile pace, and I was thinking about that last night. When exactly did I do that? Because I ran about a half a mile at a much slower pace than I had been. And then it occurred to me, I had started going down one of the trails, and I ended up having to stop and really kind of backtrack a bit there. So it really kind of slowed me down because it was just too muddy and it was swampy. It was just really, really swampy. And I just did not feel like running through that kind of muck in the woods. So the 10:31 was just me kind of doing a little bit of backtracking. And then we're going to scroll over again and we can see just visually what this looks like in graph form. And you can see for the most part, it was pretty steady. There are some peaks and valleys there. And again, that's, primarily a lot of hills. So whether I was going uphill or downhill, that can impact my average pace. And that same holds true for my heart rate. But for the most part, I was pretty happy with my heart rate. It was pretty steady throughout the workout. And then as I scroll over again, we can see, my cadence. There were parts of the run where my cadence had picked up significantly, but those coincide with the elevation gain and loss that you can see underneath that with the different hills. So when I was going downhill, clearly I was, taking advantage of the inertia going down and picking up the speed and using that to my advantage. And that's okay. I didn't have any issues with that. And I'm going to scroll over once again, and we can see for my heart rate that primarily I was in zone 4. And for me, that's pretty decent. That's about what I expected. At some point down the road, I think I mentioned earlier that, I am interested in maybe doing some training that's specific for heart rate. But for now, I'm happy with the zone 4 for the long, easy run on Friday. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. And as always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.